Good morning, everybody. Welcome. If you are looking for the monthly meeting of the Oregon Housing Stability Council, you've found it. We have just opened up our virtual meeting room and people are continuing to join the meeting. So in another couple of minutes, we'll probably get things underway. Thanks for being here. Right, let's get things going. At this point, I would like to formally convene the meeting of the Oregon Housing Stability Council. It is Friday, September 6, 2024. And as always, we'll start off with a roll call, please.
Thank you, Chair Hall. And for the record, Councilmember Rodriguez has been excused from today's meeting. Councilmember DeFontorum.
Present.
Councilmember Farrell.
Present.
Chair Hall.
Present.
Councilmember Lee.
Here.
Councilmember Mena.
Here.
Councilmember Rogers.
Here.
Councilmember Harris.
Here.
Councilmember Meehan.
Here.
Thank you, Chair Hall. We do have quorum today.
Okay, great. Thank you. First agenda item is report of the chair, and I'll keep it brief, but I'll mention since last we gathered, I had a chance to attend the ribbon cutting ceremony for the Wacoma Place apartments in Lincoln City, 44 brand new, beautiful units. The director of our housing authority said her only slight disappointment in the day was that she didn't have a vacant unit to show everybody how nice they were on the inside as well as on the outside. But I got to speak with several residents, several moving stories, including, the funding for this one prioritized fire survivors. And I did meet a man who through a sad chain of circumstances, 4 years after the Echo Mountain fires, still hadn't found permanent housing. And now he has that home at Wacoma Place. So, and I know that kind of story is being replicated from one end of the state to the other. So council, staff, public, we're doing good work and let's always celebrate it. Thank you. Director Bell, time for your director's report.
Wonderful. Well, good morning, Chair Hall, members of the council. It's really good to see you, be in virtual community. And of course, appreciation as always for all of the members of the public joining us. Chair Hall, I think that opening is a good place to start us off. I think the sentiment here is dirt is flying and affordable homes are continuing to be built across the state, which is a wonderful thing. It is the energy that keeps us all going. And I think with that regard, I have three just notes at the top for the council to continue to be aware of and to offer some foresight on. So the first one is the agency request budget for 25-27 is officially submitted to the Department of Administrative Services. Anybody that ever has a hands in building a budget, whether it's a state budget or really any budget, I feel like it's one of the cause to celebrate, one of those things that you sort of blow into it. It makes a bunch of noise. If I could do that, I would do that. But it is a really important, but certainly not the last milestone for what the future of housing progress in the state of Oregon will look like. I'd be remiss if I didn't give just an abundance of deep appreciation, certainly for all the folks across the agency that carried this feat all while doing all the day-to-day work, and certainly to our council and to partners to have always showed up and showed out in terms of giving us really a critically important expertise and feedback to really help shape progress, while the state has a really important role in facilitating our shared goals. At the end of the day, it's people in community that are pushing and grinding every day to make it happen. And so certainly, as I mentioned, this is one important milestone in a long run of milestones, but nonetheless, it is worth noting and celebrating. We'll be following up in short order, just a link to where you can find quick access to that, but just know that there will be a cacophony of conversations and updates as we hedge forward in the legislative process and the budget build process. On that note, every budget build starts with a understanding of where state revenue is at. This week, or maybe it was last week, well, recently, the state economists released an update to the states as to the state's the health of our economy. I won't attempt to go through all of those details. I'll make sure that you can again find quick access to it, but just a couple of key takeaways, at least, that stood out for me that I want to impress upon the council. Within that analysis, it broke down a few key elements in terms of inflation and revenue, and then in reserves. In the inflation category, while this is not intended to be a full summary, one of the key things that I did hear from that, which was that unemployment rate is low. And in general, the economic forecast for the state of Oregon is stable. In terms of revenue, it is expected that the Oregon's general fund will see over $600 million, excuse me, increase for the current biennium. And I think within that as well, when we look at that against the reserves, I think they characterize the reserves as certainly healthy and sizable. There's a whole great deal of detail pertaining to the general fund and then the education stability fund that I think is worth noting to try to get a full analysis there. What I will leave you with is, I think, a important quote from the governor around as to how the forecast urges really a continued emphasis on core programs and continuing to hold ground on some of Oregon's top priorities. Of course, there are a number of priorities, not only that the state is facing, but that the people of Oregon is facing. And it is undeniable that housing and cost of housing, and not enough affordable housing in all shapes and sizes, continues to enforce that housing is an imperative. And so both that is articulated in the progress that we believe is possible through the agency request budget, and I'm sure those in the legislature will continue to have a tough decision balancing all of the competing and important needs, to which we know that housing is one of those. So I will provide you a link, and if anybody has interest in some nightly reading and analysis on that of the state's economy, you can certainly have at it. The last very quick update that I will provide is pertaining to the QAP, so the Qualified Allocation Plan. In either last month's meeting or perhaps the meeting before that, Natasha, Director of Affordable Rental Housing, talked briefly about the QAP and what to look forward ahead. Now, I think council is fully aware of this, but in the long and short of the QAP is it is essentially the state's plan for how tax credits are allocated. So we have both 4% and 9% tax credits. This is a unique opportunity given the establishment of the Oregon Centralized Application. And what you might recall from Natasha's conversation during that time was we would need to come back under the establishment of the ORCA to think about how we integrate the 4% and 9% program into the ORCA. And so that is what we will intend to do in standard form. The department is going to engage in some robust engagement between September and November. And of course, many of the same critical partners that really helped us shape and deploy the ORCA. We want to make sure that we're creating some authentic tables to really get bright minds together to think about the most pragmatic way to implement that integration. So over the next few months, we'll be meeting with a number of local governments, participating jurisdictions and public funders, public housing authorities. Our team, as part of sort of our standard and ongoing work, will also convene and engage with some of our culturally specific developers, our tribal housing work group, and then of course our partners over at Housing Oregon. And again, this is really to ensure that the state is creating some spaces to hear directly from folks as to the things that we maybe need to be aware of as we're planning out for the qualified allocation plan. Towards the end of that engagement, you can expect in normal form that we will bring that back to the council, both to give a well-rounded digest of what the nexus of the engagements were, what we were hoping to get out of it, and then try to do justice to what we heard from folks and how that might shape and inform the QAP. So that is just a foresight on what is coming in that regard. So that is it for me, Chair Hall. I will yield for a moment to see if there are any questions or any topics that we maybe need to prioritize for next month that's on council's mind.
Council? Any feedback right now? Guess not. But I'm sure we can reflect and get in touch after the meeting if anybody has thoughts to share at that point. All right, anything else, Director Bell?
Nope, I think that concludes for me. I will send some follow-up based on the things I committed to, and I think we're good to move forward in the agenda.
Okay, looking forward to that. And it is now time for the Affordable Rental Housing Division portion of our meeting, and per ORS, I believe we will now be opening a public hearing in accordance with ORS 456.561.
Thank you, Chair Hall. The floor is now open for public testimony for the Affordable Housing Rental Housing Division's transactions. John Norman has signed up. John, have you joined us today? Please use the raise hand function of *9.
Do we have Mr. Norman on the line?
It does not appear so, Chair Hall.
Okay, then we will just move into the presentation on these transactions.
Great. Thank you, Chair Hall, Director Bell, Housing Stability Council. My name is Natasha Detweiler-Davy, Director of Affordable Rental Housing here at OHCS. So we have two different slates of recommendations for you, the first of which is Hollywood Hub for a 4% recommendation. So I'm going to hand it off to Ty Dunson-Strain. And I'll share slides.
Council Chair Hall, Director Bell, for the record, Ty Dunson-Strain, AD of Transactions, here to present the Hollywood Hub transaction. And just know for context, this is one of I think this is one of the largest conduit issuance that we're seeing this over the last 2 years. So I wanted to coordination and all, it takes a village to wage to raise a housing project, but also just, with making sure that, the folks, the Metro folks, the PHB folks and the HUD staff have all been actively involved in this project for quite some time. And thanks to the bridge folks for shepherding this project. So with that, Hollywood Hub, next slide, is a 224 unit project sponsored by Bridge Housing, and they will be self-managing this project. The project is in Portland. Our funding includes national HTF, National Housing Trust Funds, 4% tax credits and conduit bonds. There's a range of unit sizes and unit and affordability unit types throughout the project, including efficiency units, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms throughout the project. Just note, this is the project. A couple of amenities just I'd like to just make note of includes bike storage, community lounge, media room, laundry facilities, and it's not noted in the packet, but we did confirm that AC units will be included in every unit, with wall mount in every unit. The project is slated to close this in next month in October. The development team, next slide, includes a range of partnerships, and most notably Hacienda CDC. They have an MOU in place, and the Hacienda is also partnering with a couple of other local partners in the area to not only serve the Latino communities, but other BIPOC communities in local to the neighborhood. And the development team sponsors and the general contractor is committed to meeting our MWSB target goals, and the project is aligned with 2 of our statewide housing priority goals: equity and racial justice and affordable rental housing. With that, I ask if we have any questions that I can answer for you, and other than that, the motion is included in your packet.
Council, any questions for Ty? Councilmember Rogers, to be followed by Councilmember Lee.
Thank you, Chair Hall and Ty. So I'm just curious, first of all, about the contractor. So I don't know if we've worked with this particular contractor before, and I do see here how they're committed to meeting the MWESB target, but one, if we've worked with them before, what has been their history in the past?
Yeah, we have worked with the Walt. So it's a joint venture between Waltz Construction and O'Neill Construction. We have worked with them in the past, and data wise, tracking. I know we're going to be coming back at a future state to talk about MWSB reporting. And I don't know if Roberto or Natasha wants to add any context on kind of our. I know we're that's on our or to-do list to come out with some reporting, but I can I I know we've worked with them in the past, and commitment wise, they've performed as expected, but.
Okay, thank you.
I think maybe Roberto, do you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Sure, yeah. This is Roberto Franco, Deputy Director of Development in the Affordable Rental Housing Division. Yes, we've worked with Bridge in other projects in the past. The most recent one that I can think of, it's Cedar in the Beaverton area, and they did reach their 30% or above 30% of the commitment for MWSB. And as Ty said, with every project, it's the plan and the requirement that we monitor the progress. So they're not new to the work and the requirements that we expect in this. So they know that that's still the same expectation to reach the 30% or higher, and that responsibility falls really on the developer and the applicant working with the general contractor. So we are reminding or always reminding them about that expectation.
Yeah, so technology is amazing. I have also gotten a ping from staff indicating O'Neill is a BIPOC owned construction firm, and so also additional comfort there from a proven practice.
Thank you. It's just, this is such a really huge project and I don't want
Absolutely.
anyone to be left behind. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, Councilmember Lee?
Thank you, Chair Hall. I have sort of a off to the side question. Ty, thanks for mentioning that all the units are going to have air conditioning. It's always a conundrum to me that air conditioning units are potentially part of why we need to have air conditioning units. And I know there are some alternatives. I don't want anybody to be suffering. And I think we have to have this conversation about what are the alternatives to in-unit air conditioning, air conditioning, and what are we exploring around that? And I happen to see Dan Elliott's name on here. And I'm wondering if the weatherization division and folks have done some research about this and some work about it. I don't necessarily need to have an answer right now. However, I think it would be educational to hear, there's absolutely not an alternative. And this is the best that we're doing. We're buying high energy, whatever. Or there are some alternatives that need some more development or some more exploration or work or whatever. I'd love for us to have a greater understanding how we're going to meet the needs of people to stay cool and not die from the heat, and how we're doing that is not actually exacerbating the need for people to have air conditioning units and not die from the heat. So it's just something I wonder about. I'd love to hear some discussion about it, maybe at a future meeting. The energy folks could come and do a little teaching for us. I just don't know what the state of the conversation is. And I think it's important, especially when we talk about a 224 plus unit, building where all of the units are going to have an air conditioning, right? So it's not about the project itself. It's just when we think about that size unit, that size project and the number of units and the air conditioning being installed, I'm curious. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Councilmember Lee. I think it makes sense probably to bring back a conversation around that. I do know that there was a Senate Bill 1536 that require landlords to allow folks to install, and that there's different kind of regional priorities, and maybe Dan has a thing he's really eager to flag here, but I also believe between affordable rental housing and energy and weatherization that it will, maybe we do a collaboration and bring back that conversation in more depth in the future. But Dan, of course, if you want to.
Sure. Happy. My timing's great. I guess I came in at the right time, Mary. Yes, no. Yeah, we in regards to the AC units, is there alternatives that can be utilized for technology or just approaches in design? Yes, as a matter of fact, there are. And we have actually done projects like that. Passive House is one of those designs that we actually encourage, and we've actually funded. passive house design. We actually funded and supported the very first United States multifamily passive house certified project in the state up in Hillsborough. And it still going strong. And passive house for council members and for those that are listening in, passive house design is ultimately just a super insulated, the focus is on the actual building system itself in regards to the structure, the walls, the amount of insulation, the amount of ventilation, mechanical and otherwise. And a passive house actually is designed in such a way that you don't need those things per se, like dramatically do not need cooling and dramatically do not need heating. And it's very impressive approach as the state and the country is looking to electrification, decarbonization, and zero net approach, which is units that are providing as much power and generation on site as they do use energy, if not more. That's the ultimate in affordable housing, is it not, for tenants? And so the focus on that and the access that and the role that we play as a department, advising other departments who have roles in this, from DEQ to DCBS and codes, and to Oregon Department of Energy as well. This is a role that we will, and you'll hear from me here later, that we will play a very big role in influencing that element of our state. And so, yes, there's lots of stuff coming out, but I do want to encourage, as we electrify and we get the cooling systems, these are top of the line technologies that we're installing. We've never had better technology that is more efficient and effective as far as the investment and as far as the impact. So if there's going to be some changes in getting that kind of comfort and efficiency into the buildings, man, we've got this. This is the time, and the technology is there, and so our investments are pretty high in there with heat pumps and ACs and the way that that's going. So I'll share more of that later. Sorry, Natasha.
Oh, and let me
Council-
just jump in here. Thank you, Dan and Natasha. This is an example, I'm talking to us now, of where we've got multiple policy targets happening and agendas happening in different divisions across the department. And I think I say this fairly regularly, of where can we take the opportunity to integrate, and if we have this example in Hillsborough, how do we start to move that across all of our projects, right? And it's not always possible or feasible. However, having these things about how we're linking this effort over here to this effort over here. And I think with weatherization and energy, there's a much tighter link to affordable housing development than I think in some other ways. I know people are sort of hand in pocket. And I think it's helpful for us at the council to sort of come up an elevation and be seeing these potential future connections, not because staff aren't seeing them, but in order to support them. And as we're at the beginning of a biennial budget, could we incentivize some developers in the next 2 years to be working more closely with the weatherization folks and everyone else as they're coming back to us on these proposals? Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Harris.
Thanks, Chair Hall. Yeah, I just wanted to, I think, echo what Dan Elliott was saying, that I'm a little bit familiar with this project because the firm that I work for, the architecture firm, is the firm on this project. And it was exciting to see there's been a lot of buzz about the AC units in this particular building, because I believe the AFOCA units, and they're really high efficient, energy efficient, or highly efficient. And they also include ERVs, so energy recovery ventilators as well. So it's like kind of the gold standard, and it will be really interesting to see how the performance is on these. And so it would be great to hear some follow-up about these different strategies, and especially the more innovative ones, and what's working and what's not working, especially I'm all about resident surveys too, and understanding, just once folks are in the building, understanding their feedback as well. But I fully agree, there should always be a focus on, the less technology the better in buildings or, equipment, I would say, focusing on passive strategies, but in terms of kind of when you really need it, when there's those crisis days of the heat waves, I think that this type of strategy or unit could be really beneficial.
Okay. I'm sensing that we may be near ready for a vote. I just want to make one more pass to see if there were any council concerns or questions you wanted to put on the table right now. And if not, I'd like to entertain a motion.
So moved.
And a second, please.
Second.
Okay, and if we could have a roll call, please.
Thank you, Chair Hall. Councilmember DeFantorum.
Yes.
Councilmember Farrell.
Yes.
Chair Hall.
Yes.
Councilmember Lee.
Yes.
Councilmember Mena.
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers.
Yes.
Councilmember Harris.
Yes, I just want to state for the record that I have not personally worked on this project, just that my firm has, but yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Meehan.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Great. Moving right along.
Yes, let's see, next up from affordable rental housing, we have the ORCA recommendations. I have Amy Cole, Assistant Director of Development Resources here, and I will start the share.
Thanks, Natasha. Good morning, Chair Hall, Housing Stability Council members, and Director Bell. I'm Amy Cole, the Assistant Director of Development Resources, and I'm here this morning with the next group of ORCA projects for your consideration. Just before we start with the projects, here are some current stats about applications in the ORCA for the impact assessment step. This is a point-in-time snapshot, and things are changing rapidly in this process as projects move forward. So there are currently 29 projects in impact assessment under review, 73 projects total in the impact assessment step. And those are 43 for-profit led projects, 51 nonprofit led projects, 13 housing authority projects, and 1 tribal led project. Next slide. Just a little reminder, we saw this slide last week. These are the steps of the ORCA. So these projects have come through intake and are at their first step, which is impact assessment. Let's see. So yeah, I think we'll just, just a reminder that these applications were reviewed for completeness and to make sure that they meet all of the evaluation standards and expectations for impact assessment. And we're looking at 19 different items, including site readiness, estimated project budget and costs, and these are early project budget and costs, plan for MWASB trades in development and construction, strategies for housing and serving future residents, development team eligibility and capacity, among others. All right, so for today we have 4 projects for your consideration. And I'll go through them one by one. They are Bend Atwood Apartments, Bryn Hill Apartments, Grand Fir, and Prairie Avenue. Next slide, thank you. The first project is Bend Atwood Apartments. It will be 98 units. The developer is Home First Development. It will be in Bend. And the recommendation is for $34.9 million in LIFT funding. Let's see, next slide, please. All right, just to talk a bit about the ERJ highlights for this project. They are working with, the project has partnered with Cornerstone Community Services for resident services. This is a culturally responsive service provider who will provide services and connections for tenants who are members of communities of color. They have also, the sponsor has also partnered with Advocates for Life Skills and Opportunity, also known as ALSO, to provide services and connections for the focused population of tenants who are living with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Let's see. All of the units are planned to be either fully accessible or adaptable. There will be a universal design playground, accessible raised bed gardens, and there's a plan also for a childcare center close by, actually adjacent to the property. So, all right, next slide, please. Okay, Bryn Hill Apartments, 60 units. It is sponsored by Greenlight Development. The location is North Plains in Washington County, and it is being recommended for 21.8 million in lift. And the next slide. ERJ project highlights for this project. Greenlight has entered into a memorandum of understanding with Centro Cultural to provide comprehensive resident services. And we'll be working with their general contractor and have a commitment to reaching MWSB, the MWSB participation rate. And I didn't mention that on the other project, but same for the sponsor for Bend Atwood. All right, next slide, thank you. The next project is Grand Fir Apartments. That would be 72 units. It is being sponsored by Equity Developers. The project is in Salem, and we are recommending 25.8 million for the project in lift because it's new construction. In line with our requirements, Equity Developers has an MOU in place to serve persons who are BIPOC and refugee community members. The focus community for this project is refugee community members. The MOU is in place with Salem for Refugees for resident services and referrals. And Equity Developers and the general contractor are committing to reach their MWESB participation rate. Salem for Refugees is a resettlement organization that provides language classes, multilingual case managers, financial assistance, advocacy, and legal assistance, among other support services for refugees. All right, next slide. Prairie Avenue Apartments, 160 units. The sponsor is Wishkemper Development Partners. This will be located in Corvallis. We are recommending 52.5 million in lift for this project. And next slide, please. Wishkemper has strategies and plans in place, including MOUs with a cultural design consultant, a cultural consultant for resident services, a cultural networking consultant, and an outreach consultant, all focused on design and operations of the project, for the project being culturally responsive to Hispanic tenants. And this is the focus population along with other BIPOC tenants. Wishkemper also has an MOU in place with Cornerstone Community Housing to provide culturally responsive resident services once the development is up and running. And along with the other projects already discussed, Wishkemper and the general contractor are committed to reaching their MWSB participation rate. Next slide, please. All right. If approved for funding today, these projects will receive a letter of intent, from OHCS, and will move forward to the financial feasibility step of the ORCA. Projects will have 6 months to complete the requirements of the financial feasibility step. In financial feasibility, a detailed development budget and pro forma will be closely analyzed by our production team to ensure that each project meets financial and underwriting standards, and to ensure that projects are leveraging debt and other resources that justify and support the state investment. The reservation amounts in our memo are maximum award amounts based on ORCA subsidy limits. The final award amount for each project will be arrived at through the underwriting process in the financial feasibility step. And so that, and this slide, of course, shows all the steps of the ORCA. Next slide, please. All right, so now we're ready for discussion and questions. And eventually consideration of the motion on page 15 of the packet.
Great. Does anybody have any
Councilmember Lee.
questions? Oh, there we are. Sorry.
Mary, you're up.
Thank you, Chair Hall. Thanks, Amy. Congratulations on your, I don't know if this is new, but it felt like it was a new position. And I have a general question, not about any of these. Super exciting to see the process that people have dreamt and worked for starting to move. So love that. And my question is related to the MWESB goals. So every one of them has said, I intend to meet my MWESB goals. And we know that that doesn't always happen. We also know that there are real situations where someone's going to say, I can't make that 30% goal because of where I am or what the market looks like or those kinds of things. And of course, I assume that you all are monitoring this and checking on this. I'd like to have a little more information. Again, it does not have to be today, of just in general with MWESB, and we've really tightened what we mean when we say about it and how we're evaluating it. I want to just maybe give us a little refresher on what that is and what those levels are, so that, you know, we have new folks on the board, all of that kind of thing. And I also want to know how we've been doing. So part of this is, you know, how are the new things that we put in place around MWESB playing themselves out in these projects? And what are the consequences when a project doesn't meet the goals? Do we say, well, thanks for letting us know and try to do better next time, we understand what happened? Or are there, you know, are there monetary consequences? Are there consequences where we take a second look at their next project with us because they didn't perform in the ways that which they said they were going to perform and we asked them to? I just have, you know, again, this is in the always building. I just want us to ask sort of these next questions about what have we looked at in the past as people are committing to meet our greater standards? How are we assessing that? And what happens when they don't? And it particularly think, because we're early in this process, now is an okay time to be able to have these conversations and hear what the actions are that we take when, you know, despite everyone's hard work, we don't meet the goals that we have set, and yet the goals need to be met. So again, it doesn't have to be now, but at a future meeting, I'd love to hear more about this and have a discussion. Thank you.
Absolutely, Councilmember Lee, and I just will do a quick ping on that. I think absolutely can bring that back for further discussion. I think as the updates into the ORCA were implemented, the big shift has been from expectations to requirements. And I think we had a bunch of like pretty robust conversations with Housing Stability Council over the last year around that, and are I think queued up now, and I think we can unpack details and kind of get into that in a future discussion, but really aligned toward figuring out what the needed supports are to be successful. And so I think where we see development teams not being successful in meeting their requirements, we would be requiring them to add additional supports to their development team so they have the needed expertise to be successful in the future. And I think as kind of the next stage in that trajectory towards building a strong system where we can prove success and ability to do MWSB contracting in projects across the state, And honestly, to not just meet those standards, but the more the better. I think that was the measurement of moving that further along, continuing to raise the bar, but is not in a place of doing the punitive piece, because how do you remedy if you can't prove that you have strategies within it? So anyway, I think, again, a great flag, and certainly something that we can be bringing back for discussion as well.
Hey, Council Member Meehan.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. And really like seeing that there is discussion about, you know, the MWSEB and those things. My statement, I think, is has to do with resident services. And I know historically that resident services in these projects don't necessarily reflect the need of the residents that we're serving. I see there's a lot of refugees, and there's some language here that says, you know, that they're going to connect with agencies and organizations that will help them. And I just, you know, kind of want to put that out there, that it's really important that these that resident services doesn't stay the same as it's always been, which is kind of just a basic, you know, low grade, low interaction just with the building, that especially with our refugees and folks, you know, being transplanted here, that they need an extra level of service and support, and being new to the region, country, and going through their traumatic events that have brought them here. So just glad to see that it's in there and there's some good language there. Just want to reiterate that's kind of important, I think.
And I can just say that I really appreciate that call out. And, you know, we are getting much more information in these applications than we can possibly provide, either in the summaries that we're providing or in the slides for the slide deck. And so we're trying to just pull out the sort of salient points. And I think I can say that definitely our expectations for resident services are higher than they have been, you know, in the past. And we are really looking at that along with all of the other 18 standards that we have for impact assessment. And we are requiring, as a project goes through the process, that they adhere to what they have told us in this part of the in this step of the application process. So additionally, we are monitoring for that. You know, we're making sure that they have resident services, that they have funding to cover those resident services as we look, you know, as projects move forward through the ORCA process. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And also, you know, the best way to find out what's really going on at the end of the day is to ask the people that are being served at some point, you know, during or aftermath. So thank you.
Great. Anybody else on the council wish to be heard? Questions, comments? Then do we have a motion for approval of these 4 projects, recommendations?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, roll call, please.
Thank you, Chair Hall. Councilmember DeFantorum.
Yes.
Councilmember Farrell.
Yes.
Chair Hall.
Yes.
Councilmember Lee.
Yes.
Councilmember Mena.
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers.
Yes.
Councilmember Harris.
Yes.
Councilmember Meehan.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
And that brings us to the conclusion of the Affordable Rental Housing Division portion of our meeting. And we do have a scheduled break in the agenda right now. What I would like to propose, if everybody's agreeable, that we go ahead and take a 10-minute break, reconvene right at 11 o'clock. Right at 10 o'clock with the Housing Stabilization Division presentation. If everybody's agreeable to that, we'll see you in 10 minutes and Until then, we're in recess. Okay, it's 10 o'clock. We'll give it maybe 1 or 2 more minutes and then reconvene and on with our business. Well, let's go ahead and reconvene the meeting of the Oregon Housing Stability Council. It is Friday, September 6th, 2024. I'm Chair Claire Hall, and we're moving on now to a presentation from our Housing Stabilization Division. Who's got that?
Good morning, Chair Hall, Director Bell, members of the council. My name is Liz Weber. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the interim director of the Housing Stabilization Division. And today we're here to provide a briefing on 2 bills that provided important investments into climate action and sustainability and energy resilience programs. The energy services section and weatherization sections along with the state agency partners are implementing these programs. And Dan Elliott will be walking us through these programs. And I saw him here earlier. You're back on camera, so I will hand it over to Dan.
Good morning, council members. We got to chat a little bit earlier at the previous with some information on projects. And yeah, Council Harris, I believe it was Orchards at Aranco was the project for those that were interested in that passive house design. One thing I also just want to comment before I jump into a very timely discussion of what these 2 bills mean for us. I'm just going to give you some quick facts on AC and the importance of controlling extreme heat issues that come up more frequently each year. So in 2022, 1,714 people died from extreme heat in their homes. That's 62%. That made up 62% of all weather-related deaths, tornadoes, okay, earthquake, flood, cold weather, 62%. In 2023, we would hope it would stabilize or get better. It did not. It actually went up to 2,325, and it made up 68%. So this is not the direction we want to go and we want to see. And so you see that there's a lot of discussion, and you'll see a lot of work around providing this type of technology to mitigate these types of things occurring, regrettably. So the good thing is the legislature provided for that. And so in the memo that you received, there is some information regarding 2 bills. I'm going to share my screen here with a presentation. Here we go. Just to provide for an overview. I believe everyone can see this. Yes? Thumbs up. Great. Okay. So we've got 2 House bills that were introduced in 2023. One of the things that the legislature wanted to be able to consider is moving through some of the objectives of electrification, dealing with decarbonization, our goals for the state, as well as net zero approaches to building, both commercial and residential, and how to incentivize that. And then more importantly, how are we all going to work together when we do provide these incentives in these types of programs that are out there? And some of them are rather disparate, and they're located in different agencies, different objectives, some different missions, different focuses. This is the nature of business in regards to how government gets its programs out. So we try to leverage and put all those packages together as best as possible so that it maximizes the efficiency, the access to technology. It meets with the missions that we have as a state and as an agency to meet with the communities that are underserved and that are most impacted by the changes. These two bills are focused on the legislature giving authority to the executive branch agencies that have impacts in those areas and have either by regulation or by funding or by administration, and that they are to work together, and they have the mandate to work together and the authority to work together and the directive to work together to consolidate a better provision of services to Oregonians. So bottom line, a goal, address the energy bill struggles for the most part, but also dealing with the future climate challenges and the impacts therein by maximizing that collaboration. And these two particular bills were the efforts to be able to do that. But they were motivated, I'm going to go back. They were motivated by something called the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, as well as the Inflation Reduction Act. This is a historically unprecedented amount of funding that has been invested into the nation and into states and has been made available to states and organizations, both private, nonprofit, and profit as well, to invest in sustainable activities to improve anywhere from improving the grid to vehicles to industry and both commercial and residential, and in particular environmental justice. So being able to provide and protect and mitigate the impacts to those communities that are most impacted by that. So when you see the types of investments that have happened, I wanted to put this up for you to be able to see what we're looking at here. So for some of you may have been around during the Great Recession, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act there from 2009 to 2017. We thought that was huge, and that made a big investment, and that required a lot of work and a lot. So for those of you that were involved in that, myself included, that was memorable. A lot of work, and but very rewarding and very impactful. We made big payback and investments and made big strides in technology and how we do business and in the types of materials and the code as well. Now we are seeing a huge infusion of dollars. That started in 2022. Those dollars started to become available to states. States began to position themselves in 2022 and 2023 and the beginning of 2024 to apply for these dollars and to compete for them. And Oregon has been very successful, one of the most successful states in getting these dollars. It also means that we are going to need to organize all of this, and it's going to take about a year. And so the effort to that, all of the applications and the competitive dollars that we have, the great amount there has been applied for the most part, and we've received those dollars. We just received a competitive dollar. DEQ did. We partnered with them through the Climate Production Reduction Grant. There are some other dollars that, and you'll hear about that later on. We'll share with you in the spring. But there's going to be some more money coming, but the next year, starting next month, that's why I'm meeting with you today to brief you, to let you know that we are beginning that discussion. Mary, this is the discussion and the process by which we are going to begin how we are going to do the logistics of working together, because there are so many players incentivizing the measures and the work for our developers and for households in general, that in order, it's going to be very hard pressed not to see these types of things. The one thing I can promise you is that there's going to be a lot more heat pumps and ACs. They are incentivizing a lot of that work. That is a done deal. What we can do is also have further discussion on what we can do as far as the buildings, building themselves. So I just wanted to set this up. So realizing that these dollars were coming, this is where the legislature went. They said, well, we need to help our agencies be able to be in a good position to apply for these monies and also to be able to set goals that are consistent with that and have us have a big glove waiting to capture these dollars and be prepared to do so. And so from 2022, our agency, our team, as well as other teams and leads with other agencies from OHA to DEQ to DCBS to ODO have been working closely together to team up to look at how we should go about approaching and going after these dollars, even so much as to encouraging cities and other entities to leverage up their applications and get in there. And so we've been extremely successful with Solar for All for our EPA grant that we just received, which was nearly $200 million for the state, of which our department will be benefiting from as well. So these two bills, House Bill 3409, the Energy Omnibus Bill, it's focused primarily on reducing greenhouse gas emissions and promotes the sustainable practices. It is a big bill full of very specific directives and authorities that provide each agency specific work to do. And that work that they do impacts our developers and the work that they do as well. And because it's also focused and set out to focus on underserved communities. The reality is that our department and our programs play a key role because of what we do and the access we have to affordable housers and affordable housing and to the underserved populations as well. And this affords a great way to work with these other departments to get them to one, understand. My goal is to make sure that DEQ, OHA, DCBS, Oregon Department of Energy, they are housers as well as we are. We're housers. We're going to teach them to be housers, and they're going to teach us how to be health experts, health specialists, and they're going to teach us how to be better energy experts and help us promote better code and better practices, and vice versa. And so there's this huge consolidation, and this is where it comes down to we need to work together. And they put in this other bill 3630, which is the one affectionately known as the one-stop shop, which aims to enhance resiliency and support environmental justice groups. But this is where it's a one platform where we're going to put together the best types of packages and make access for developers and customers like yourselves and low-income communities better access all of these new technologies and incentives that are out there, which is a whole nother meeting and a whole nother discussion to go over what those types of things. The important part is these two bills critically called out our department for some specific things, which I'll go over here in a second. And but they want us to leverage federal investments. So the legislature has put us on an obligation to be a part of the discussion and a part of the solution. 3409, the collaboration and our involvement, these are pretty much the straightforward elements that they've named us in the bill that they want us to work towards. And so one is, again, the cooling resource website that we have. They wanted us to be the flag bearer for that in many ways. So this is a one-stop area where people can come in and find out about all different types of elements around receiving resources for your properties and conditions of the state and status of conditions of the state. The other element is for the first time they beefed up and changed the name of the Climate Commission to the Oregon Climate Action Commission, and they've added some more members, and they've added some agencies and some non-voting members, of which OHCS is one of those. Director Bell was introduced herself and the department a few months ago at one of the commission hearings, much to their joy, and it was really good for them to be able to hear from us and hear from Director Bell, and they are very interested in what we do and how we do it. And one of the things that is different in this particular bill is that this commission is an advisory body to the departments that are participating in it, including us. So they will be advising us on on our programs as well. We'll be submitting things to them in the future. Currently, this is they're still getting their legs. This commission is trying to figure out some things on how broad and what they're actually going to be doing as far as advisability to the agencies that are included. We're not sure what that quite will look like, but we anticipate their advisory role for our programs and for the type of work we do as they become more familiar with it will be one that you'll hear more about. And I also encourage council members, this is a public meeting, to take a look at the Climate Action Commission website and sit in on a meeting or two, or take a look at the agendas and see what they're up to and what type of work they're going to be expecting from the executive branch participants that are in there. And then also in 3409 is the energy efficiency program involvements, which is the consolidation of programs, but also promoting their heat pump technology adoption, which we already have been doing in all of our programs currently right now. And among other types of technologies. But the more important part here is that there's a lot of duplication, fragmentation, and overlap. I'll be frank with all the new programs that have come in and that will be coming in and will be hitting the ground by this time next year. And so we have a whole year to weave and package this all to get an inventory of all of these programs and figure out how to package these so that it's an easy process for developers to get triaged quickly for their projects and to maximize all of the benefits and all the types of incentives that are available out there. It's a smorgasbord and will be of incentives out there where it will be very hard for affordable. It would be very challenging for an affordable houser not to have most of their technologies and their mitigation practices and investments in sustainability in their projects not cover at least 80, if not more, % of their project costs for that work. So that's huge. Very, very big stuff. So we're excited to see, and there will be more to come with that as well. We're also working on trying to figure out how we can use federal dollars together in a way that doesn't offset one another. And so there's going to be some tricky things that we're doing that we're currently talking with the federal government about. We're having some conversations in regards to some of their policies that they have that we would appreciate that they would help with a little bit better to encourage that kind of threading and weaving of these other dollars. Now, they also had another bill, House Bill 3630. This is the one-stop shop. That's going to require us to really package together an outreach. I also want to let you know that we are consultants as an agency in both of these bills. We don't lead anything. We're not in charge of anything, and we're not directed to do any of the programs that are in there. We're directed to assist and consolidate and collaborate with, and they are required. ODO is one of them in particular, is required to consult us on how to put together these things. And one of those reasons is most of these federal dollars, not most, all of these federal dollars that are related to this that are coming in have a focus and a lens of what's called the Justice 40 initiative. I know I've spoken with with the council before on what that initiative is, but it's a focus of, well, I'll get to it here in this next slide, but the involvement that we have here is to assist them in integrating the current programs that they offer, the feds offer, as well as what we offer, which means we're coordinating and exchanging data. The good part is we are already in a formal interagency agreement with a couple of programs with Oregon Department of Energy, among others. So we already have a very good relationship with ODO and DEQ and OHA. As a matter of fact, I've taken, we've been at 3 conferences in the last several months together on the road. The leads for each agency to go in to present and share with people that this is coming. We're working together, and we'll know when we know more as the federal government provides us more guidance and gives us an idea of what it is they're expecting from us. And as we start to nail down the funds that we're applying for, both competitively and that we are afforded by formula from Congress. Oops, too fast. So Justice 40 initiative, why is this, why is it critical for them to work with us? One of the things is the Justice 40 initiative. All investments, 40% of the overall benefits of these dollars have to go towards disadvantaged communities. Well, the feds also have already determined the prescribed areas, the disadvantaged or DACs, disadvantaged communities in each state. So they expect to see some outcomes, both carbon reduction, energy efficiency, as well as what population groups are receiving in those DACs. The good part of that is that we already do that with our programs. We already have those relationships. We're already serving those communities. So we provide a gateway. Our programs provide a gateway and assistance to be able to get after and into those communities. And it also acts as a way to layer the communities as their programs with our programs to just maximize the amount of dollars. It's remarkable. In all my career, 30 years, I've never seen this much money, this much funding coming into an investment for this type of work. It's exciting. It's an exciting time, but it's also a crowded dance floor now. It's gone from maybe a two-step to a bit of a mosh pit, but we're getting it. We'll have it ready by within a year. We have a year to figure out how we're gonna organize this and work out the details. And we've got time to do that. And the good thing is we've got the talent and we've got some clear thinking. And we already have so many things that are in place. So it will afford us a real opportunity to have those big discussions and make those kind of decisions on, as Mary said, can we do something other than just throwing technology at it? Can we be more thoughtful about some of the practices that we do, some of the materials we use, some of the codes that we want to expect in affordable housing? What types of, is a carbon neutral building what we want to do is what we expect for affordable housing investments for this time period, considering so much money is coming towards this and being invested and incentivized for this? Should it be something we should expect to see and make as policy? These are bigger discussions down the road, but the reality is with the amount of investments and dollars that we have coming in, there's not going to be a whole lot of excuse not to. So there's an opportunity, a window of opportunity here to be able to set buildings to a very high standard that will be around not for 100 years, not for 200 years. We're talking 300-400 year buildings that will be able to be around and be functional for the added demands of energy needs as we go, as the climate changes, and as costs change and as the population increases. So these are the DAC areas in Oregon. I just wanted you to see what the dark areas were. These are the areas that they want to see most of that 40% investment be. This is in rural areas, as you can see. And so this is I believe we already hit that with our weatherization programs alone, and with the new climate production reduction grant dollars that we've received, we will be able to hit that even better, even more with our Oregon Multifamily Energy Program. So the funding impact, there's about $100 million that's between those two bills, with $1 billion leverage coming in dollars. Like I said, huge improvements. We'll be able to update you as we go because we're just now beginning and people are just getting their legs on this, from advisory bodies to discussions. We're already in the weeds on logistics for our elements, but we'll have more to share with you as we get closer to that launch with ODO and DEQ in the spring. And so what I plan to do is have my colleagues at DEQ, OHA, and ODO, along with myself, come in and introduce themselves to the council and share a little bit about themselves, the background, and the work that we're doing as a team to collaborate all of these programs as best as possible. And that's what I have for you today, Council. I'll be back in the spring, unless you want me earlier.
Okay. Thanks so much. Any questions, feedback from the council on this? Councilmember Lee will be second. I'm sorry. Councilmember Farrell jumped in first.
No worries. I'm just wondering if you can clarify the OHA acronym. I'm not familiar with that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, there's a dollar in the jar. Sorry. That's the Oregon Health Authority.
Okay, that answers my second question, and thank you for clarifying. I was otherwise gonna have a whole different line of questioning.
The Oregon Health Authority, actually in the housing package as well, this last session received $14 million in addition for their Healthy Homes program, of which I'm on their advisory board and on their rules committee and scoring. Yeah, they are doing fantastic because they leverage their dollars with our weatherization and our multifamily programs as well. And so they are doing a great job. I'm happy. It feels like it's nice to have another oar in the water helping us along with our housing projects. So it's good to see OHA taking on.
That was going to be my question, is like with the health related services benefit rolling out, it sounds like there will be coordination between.
Oh, it's already happening. I
Okay,
can share with you that it's already happening, and they'll come in and share that too. That's what I'm going to have them come in the spring, and we'll have a lovely little panel here. I hope that we'll be able to accommodate that for everybody, so you can see all the smiling faces of everybody who has an oar now, and we're not alone. I felt it so alone for a long time, and it's nice to see.
Thanks.
All right. Councilmember Lee.
Thank you, Chair Hall. Thanks, Dan. I feel like we all just need to take a breath because that was a lot in a really short period of time. Appreciate all that you have brought to and are bringing to this field. It's amazing. I want to just, again, erase this point about racial justice and equity. Lots of times people talk about the Justice 40 initiative as, taking care of the racial justice and equity pieces. And certainly there's a component of that, but it is not the focus of the Justice 40 initiative and the pieces that are a part of this conversation. And I know in almost every interaction that we've had with the feds and anyone else, their commitment to racial justice and equity does not match ours. And their expectations of what might define racial justice and equity activities do not match ours. And we've had to fight sometimes to say, nope, we're saying this. Nope, we're pushing ourselves. And then sort of in this pivot point, we also have to push our partners on racial justice and equity. And one thing that I'm noticing is, at least in the presentation, there is not enough overt description, conversation, and activities are articulated from our perspective on what would meet our racial justice and equity commitments, values, and goals in the activities or the collaborations or the opportunities that we've talked about. And I think this is an area, and we've had to push, right? We've had to push with ourselves, with our partners, and with the feds, right? So it's this multi-tentacled challenge, and in this moment where we are seen as an expert, an advisor, someone who's going to help form the entire approach and methodology and all of that, we've got to be even more vocal and more explicit around our values and how our values are going to get reflected in how these projects get put together, how they get funded, whether they get funded or not, based on their commitment and their action to racial justice and equity. So I really, as we're moving forward with this, I want to ask and extol that we do it. We be the people, because oftentimes we are the only people in that room who are raising the issue of racial justice and equity, and nobody wants to hear you say it. And we got to say it, we got to be explicit. It has to be in all of our printed materials, our presentation materials, our talking point materials. And I want us to remind us about this, and for people who haven't been through some of these projects, to say this is what the field is like. Little changing, but not a lot. And to say that I want our role and materials to be the champion for racial justice and equity in any room, at any table, on any subject that we're talking to. And there may be some more details, of course, in the voluminous documents that didn't get in this presentation. And I just it's important to say. Thanks, Dan, for all the work and for the presentation.
You bet, Mary. And there's not a whole lot. They, you know how some of those go, but and yeah, thank you for the qualifier and yes, and yes. I do want to share one thing, that the Oregon Climate Action Commission, they're going to be the ears and the advisors for all of these departments in a lot of these areas. And oh, I am so thrilled that Director Bell is now on that commission, because she will be able to extol and share and help. We'll say can help advise in a very good and powerful way, as she always has been and does. And so I'm really excited for the environmental justice groups to hear from our department and from Director Bell in that regard, and maybe from a council member or two.
Well, I'll take that as a segue, Dan, so I really appreciate that. So I just, first off, I think I'm sure you can feel the excitement around the intersection of housing affordability, and our deep interest that will manifest into action around quality of life, because I think that is a big piece of what we're talking about and what our work is. We are in the business of policy and government, and those are intended to work for people, for all people, in real concrete ways. So I'll maybe just say a couple things on this. So we are very excited. I'm all up in Dan's world right now, which, depending on the day, he either loves or doesn't love so much, but has been good for it, is, so first off, we have been, and I don't think we certainly have been alone, is we've been engaging in these conversations for quite some time. And one of the key benefits that I see to the moment that we are in right now, that we were not as advanced on a year ago, is we as an agency we actually have a framework for racial justice as an agency. So we have some working definitions, some common understanding, and we know how to put that into action. You all have seen it every day. You all have helped to shape that and drive that and actually do that, both with the fumbles and the things that we've gotten right. So it's not as though we are taking our first steps in this. We are further along in our journey. And so we have more tools in our belt to be able to move these things forward, even as we're continuing to learn those things. So I think that's really great. We're not coming in green. The second piece, which Councilmember Lee, which I think you expressly mentioned, which is true, in that we see that both the Justice 40, IRA investments, infrastructure investments, they are not in totality advancing expressly racial justice. What I see them as are openings for us to take the resources, to take the intended goals, and to overlay the work that we know best and how to implement, and how to ensure that there are express advancement for folks of color and for tribes across the state. So we see that as an opening to layer on our lens in ensuring that it actually does that. And so I think that fight that you mentioned, Councilmember Lee, I think it's always fighting for something, and we're certainly not fighting against it, but we're taking the opening and I think the values of the administration to say, got it, now we're going to do our thing with it, both as a collective executive branch, but also one that is very clear about our values and how to make sure that our values are manifesting in the work. I think the other piece of this is, and I think it is an important one, is a major part of our work obviously focuses on building more housing. And what we're talking about today is our metrics of effectiveness and success, not only by the number of units and the number of homes, but the quality of it, the durability of it, and how it connects and reconnects communities and helps communities be healthier communities. Things that are sometimes like humidity, where you can't see it, but you can feel it. And those are things that we can concretely measure and focus on. And I think it's really important responsibility as an agency, as an executive branch. And so our intention, I think, as Dan mentioned, is to have an unrushed conversation around the intersections of this work, because I think where there was a nod to at the top of the meeting, which is how are all these policies interacting not only in aspiration, but how is that facilitating our shared outcomes locally? What does accountability and support and flexibility, but nonetheless accountability for ourselves and folks that are helping to move these dollars actually look like? So we are thrilled and always humbled and excited for the council to roll with us on these journeys as we're growing and expanding. And it would be really great for us to maybe consider some preliminary thoughts around how we make good use of that future dialogue so that we are bringing it to you in a way that is high enough at the policy level, not getting lost in the details, but also making sure that we are continuing to bring ideas, even if they're initial and a little bit raggedy, to help shape and form that with council. So as always, appreciate that. I'll yield to you, Dan, to maybe close us out as you do so well.
Well, geez, you did pretty well there, Director. So I don't have anything else to add other than I have more to add. Later on, I'll bring more details. There's a lot here. Too much for the council so the update that will come in spring will be able to bifurcate and break some things down so that we have some genuine solutions, and it'll come back for advice. So things won't be dialed in for each agency, but you'll come and see some of the directions. And the difficulty I say for most of all of this is that each agency has their own advising bodies. They have their own goals. They have their own missions and stuff. Getting us all to be on the same page generally for what those outcomes look like, I can say so far has been very good, has been and consistent. And I've been happy and grateful for my colleagues and the stakeholders. It's unique to Oregon. It's just getting all the people in place. Once we get that squared, then the putting the right wires together and figuring out how to do the two-step together on that without confusing our access to these things. That's going to be the real key. How do we make this smooth for accessibility to all of these things? Because this investment will fundamentally change the shape and literally, figuratively speaking, the shape of the buildings that we house people in, and the manner in which we do it. So it's exciting. It's exciting time. And council member Harris, it was Orchards at Orenco.
Oh yeah, I think that was Councilmember Lee who had brought up the passive house strategy. But yes, thank you for that. And I think it's okay if I ask a question now. I just kind of interrupted myself. So I just had one question. It's clear that there's overlapping or coordination between the federal level and the state level. I'm curious about the city jurisdictional level, like specifically PCEF, Portland Clean Energy Fund, and for the data coordination and exchange, how you all plan to approach that.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that. It's a great question. That's one of those, how are we going to wire all of this together? So one of the things is Portland Clean Energy Fund for the council members. That is the largest investment that any city and quite frankly, state has for investing in sustainable and energy efficiency activities, of which I believe 40% of their funds are going towards underserved communities. We are aware of the impact that makes because they receive almost $100 million a year in revenue. To give you an idea, the public purpose charge, if anybody's familiar with that, that's the little bill if you're a PGE or Pacific Power customer or Northwest Natural or any of the investor-owned utilities, you're going to see a little fee on there for the public purpose work that is done. That totals about $100 million a year for the entire state for all of those invested. So this one city has set aside a lot of money. So upwards, I think they have $500 million that they're trying to get out the door right now, and that seems to be building. So they don't have as tight of provisions in what's required of our dollars as far as certain justifications and investments. They're not going to match. But what we love about PCF is that they're able to do so much. And many of our affordable housers have already taken advantage of PCEF on our projects, along with Energy Trust as well, and along with our multifamily dollars. So we are already working with PCF. The Energy Trust ourselves as well are working in a way to collaborate with PCF. They're the largest. Now, if we had to, the trick is there will be lots of other localities. I mean, if cities or counties decide to do provisions like this, we're going to have to be aware, and there's going to have to be a very, very specific and local triage on how that works. Oregon Department of Energy, they're the ones in charge of that House bill for one-stop shopping. To consolidate all that, they're actually going to be hiring a third party to assist with that consolidation and packaging at every level. So there will be a huge inventory taken of all of those. The trick is that the access to some dollars is easier than the access to other dollars because of some of the requirements that are done. A city could make it a lot easier to access dollars, especially if they have a lot of money, versus a federal funding source that might be made available, and they might be able to pay for all of it. So what we want to make sure is that there's enough work to be done and leveraged and packaged and layer in a way that it doesn't offset or kick out the opportunity for federal dollars to be leveraged, so that the city all of a sudden, because they're the easiest, they're flipping the whole bill for that thing. That's not right. That's not fair. That's not equitable. And that's not an investment we want to see. So to package that. However, we do know that in certain times, when you got $500 million for a city to put out money, it gets really, in the times money comes out, they want to get dollars. And if it's easy, sometimes affordable housers go, that covers everything I need. I don't need anything else. I don't want to jump through the hoops for all these other dollars, which could be a dollar match on PCF or something like that. These are the discussions that we have to have. It's the reality of the market of choice that consumers and affordable housing developers and planners are going to have to decide how they're going to layer this. Well, we're going to figure out what that is and work together to figure out how that is best packaged, so they do get the maximize, and everybody gets a little bit of we get a little bit of investment, another gets a little bit, so we're not leaving any of our dollars that are frankly duplicated, but they're overlapped, and so there's going to be a lot of that. So the trick is to get everybody out of their silo, everybody so that we understand ODO's programs as well as they understand how our programs and incentives work. We understand how OHA's, ETOs, I understand how PCF's works. We understand how all of them collaborate together. So we're going to be busy understanding how the world is weaved and so the state that gets good at this is going to be the winner of additional monies that other states are not going to be able to get good at this to spend their money down. And that means that if we can get those dollars of investments out into affordable housing, affordable developers' hands quickly, and get the money in their hands quickly so that they can make that investment. You know who likes that? Businesses, manufacturers, retailers, and they're going to start to invest more into our state because they're going to get turnaround faster and they're going to be able to make bigger investments. So it behooves us to make our processes really good here in the state for how we maximize all that. So for the next year, all the logistics aside, there's going to be a lot of discussion on the logistics. So I hope I encourage you that we're aware and we're working with them on that, and we hope that they continue to partner with us as well. They do have choices, all of them do, but we'll try to get some sort of formal arrangement with them. We do on some levels, but again, the market is the market. So we're gonna can't control the choice, but we can influence and possibly encourage investment from particular entities into our projects, or we would expect to see to encourage that in our projects as they go through ORCA. I'm just going to put that out there, but it's things to consider.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else? Director Bell, did you have some thoughts to share with us?
No, I have shared what I have for now. There will be more to come, Chair Hall. I'll leave it to you to round us out today.
Okay, well, I think I guess we're at the end of our, Councilmember Lee, thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Hall. I wanted to catch us before we adjourn. I want to make a request to you. We've talked about this a couple times over the period of time. At these meetings, there are various requests for information or follow-up that happen, and I know we're recording them. It would be very helpful for me if we, at the beginning of the meeting, maybe in your chair's report, we could say, and here were the 5 things that we talked about at last week, and we're going to cover 3 of them today and 4 of them are going to next week, or this one can never be answered. It's hard for me to keep track from month to month to month what everyone has asked for, information people have requested, let alone what I've requested. So if we could try to think about a way, maybe you and Shaloa can consult, but I'd love for a way at the beginning of the meeting to say, here's what was requested last time, here's what we've covered, here's when the other stuff is going to get covered, if at all, but just a little check-in at the beginning of our meetings of the information we've asked for. And, I'm quite prepared for the answer to be, this can never happen because of X, or it's not of a high enough priority, given everything else staff is doing for this to get addressed. And that circling back would be helpful for me. So whatever works for you and for, of course, Shaloa, would be really appreciated if you all wanted to let us know the outcome of that conversation next month. Thank you.
All right. Any other thoughts for the good of the order? Well, our last summer meeting. We'll see you in the fall. Thank you, everyone, for another outstanding meeting. And until next time, we're adjourned.